My mother told me not to come to Thanksgiving because I wasn't presentable enough for my sister's fiancé. Not sick, not busy, not too far away, just not presentable. I was standing in a half-painted kitchen with primer on my jeans and a roller in my hand when she said it. Nora, honey. Brianna is trying to make a good impression, my mother said, using that soft voice people use when they want cruelty to sound reasonable. Evan's family is very polished. His mother is on a hospital board. His sister married a surgeon. We just don't want the evening to feel awkward. I looked down at my hands. The skin around my knuckles was cracked from sanding cabinets all week. There was white paint under my thumbnail. Awkward, I repeated. Mom sighed. You know what I mean. Your work clothes, the repair talk, the way you always bring up bills and broken things. Brianna needs tomorrow to be beautiful. Just stay home this year. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't even ask her why my own family's table suddenly had standards I couldn't meet. I just said, okay. Then I hung up. And the next morning, my sister's fiancé knocked on my workshop door, looked past my furious family, stared straight at me and said, "Wait, you're Nora Clay." That was the first time anyone in my family realized the woman they were ashamed of was the one holding their whole life together. My name is Nora Clay. I'm 30 years old, and I run a small home repair and furniture restoration business in a working-class neighborhood outside Columbus, Ohio. Nothing glamorous. No glass office, no fancy title, no company car. Just a faded blue workshop on the corner of Linden and Oak, a used white van with a ladder strapped to the roof, and a sign above the door that says Blue Porch Restorations. I fix what other people give up on. Cabinets with water damage. Dining tables with cigarette burns. Porch steps that sag in the middle. Kitchen walls with old stains. Bedroom doors that won't close right. Chairs with one leg shorter than the others. I like broken things because broken things don't lie. They don't pretend they're fine. They don't call you dramatic for noticing the damage. My family was different. In my family, everything had to look perfect from the outside, even if the inside was rotting. My mother, Diane, treated appearances like religion. She could turn a regular Sunday dinner into a photo shoot. She chose outfits by color palette. She straightened pillows no one was allowed to lean on. She wrote Facebook captions like our family was a lifestyle brand. My father, Ron, played his part. He smiled when Mom told him to smile. He bragged about the right things to the right people. He never cared much about emotions, but he cared deeply about not being embarrassed. And then there was my younger sister, Brianna. Brianna was the golden child, pretty polished, charming when she wanted to be. She worked in marketing for a dental office and talked about branding like it was oxygen. She wore cream sweaters, gold hoops, and perfume that smelled expensive even when she claimed it was from Target. Mom posted about Brianna constantly. So proud of our beautiful girl. Brianna always lights up every room. Can't wait to celebrate this next chapter. Me. I was usually mentioned only when something broke. Call Nora. The sink is leaking. Call Nora. Dad's porch rail is loose. Call Nora. Brianna needs help moving. Call Nora. Mom forgot the electric bill again. Call Nora before there's a late fee. For years, I mistook being needed for being loved. That was my first mistake. When Dad's bathroom floor started sinking near the tub, I spent 2 weekends ripping out damaged boards and replacing them while he stood in the doorway saying, "You sure you know what you're doing?" When Mom's washing machine flooded the laundry room, I drove over at 10:30 at night, cleaned the mess, fixed the hose, and paid for the part, because she said she didn't have cash until Friday. When Brianna moved into her first apartment, I assembled every shelf mounted, every curtain rod, patched every nail hole, and refinished a dining table she found on Facebook Marketplace. She posted a picture of that table the next morning. The caption said, "So thankful Dad helped me create my dream apartment. Dad hadn't touched a single screw." I saw the post while sitting in my van outside a gas station eating a protein bar for dinner because I was too tired to cook. I didn't comment. I told myself it didn't matter. But it did. Little erasures always matter. They just take longer to bleed. Thanksgiving was supposed to be at my parents' house that year. Brianna had been talking about it for weeks because Evan Reed, her fiancé, was coming to meet the extended family properly. I had only seen him in pictures. Tall, clean-cut, serious face. The kind of man who looked like he folded sweaters instead of throwing them on chairs. Brianna wanted everything perfect. She wanted the turkey from the expensive butcher across town. She wanted matching napkins. She wanted white pumpkins on the table even though Thanksgiving was not a wedding. She wanted Mom to make sure Uncle Pete didn't talk politics. She wanted Dad to wear the navy sweater, not the gray one. And apparently she wanted me gone. The night Mom called, I was finishing a kitchen repaint for a single mother named Carla. She had saved for months to make her kitchen look decent before her family came for Thanksgiving. Her little boy Mason had drawn crooked stars on printer paper and taped them to the fridge. When Mom told me to stay home, I looked at that fridge and thought even this child knows how to make room for something imperfect. But my own family didn't. After I hung up, I finished Carla's kitchen. I painted the last corner, cleaned the rollers, put the cabinet doors back, wiped the counters. Then I stood in the middle of that small room and let myself feel the full weight of what had happened. I had been removed from Thanksgiving like clutter before guests arrived. Not because I had done something wrong, because I did not match the image. The next morning I made coffee in my workshop and tried to pretend it was a normal day. It wasn't. By 10 my phone started buzzing. Aunt Marlene texted, "Your mom said you couldn't make it today. Is that true?" Then my cousin Jake, "Grandma is asking why your chair is gone." Then Grandma Ruth called. Grandma Ruth was 82, sharp as a sewing needle, and the only person in my family who ever looked directly at the ugly parts without pretending they were shadows. "Nora," she said, "did your mother tell you not to come?" I closed my eyes. She asked me to stay home because of Brianna's man. I didn't answer. Grandma made a sound in her throat. That's what I thought. "Grandma, please don't make a scene. I am 82 years old," she said. A scene is one of the few pleasures I have left. Despite myself, I laughed. She hung up before I could stop her. Later, I found out she left before dinner. Aunt Marlene followed. Then half the table sat there asking questions my mother did not want to answer. So at 7:30 the next morning, someone pounded on my workshop door hard enough to rattle the glass. I opened it wearing black leggings, an old hoodie, and thick socks because the concrete floor was cold. My hair was in a messy bun. I had coffee in one hand and zero patience in the other. My entire family stood on the sidewalk. Mom, Dad, Brianna, and Evan Reed. Mom's face was tight with humiliation disguised as anger. Dad looked like he had already decided I owed him an apology. Brianna's eyes were swollen from crying, but her coat was perfect. Beige wool, gold buttons, the kind of outfit people wear when they want to look wounded elegantly. Evan stood a little behind them, hands in his coat pockets, watching quietly. Mom didn't say good morning. "How could you do this to us?" she demanded. I blinked. "Do what?" "Tell people you were excluded." I stared at her. I told Grandma the truth. Dad stepped forward. "You embarrassed your mother in front of everyone." I almost smiled. They had banned me from Thanksgiving because I might embarrass Brianna. Now they were mad that their own cruelty had embarrassed them. Brianna's voice came out sharp. Grandma left. Aunt Marlene barely spoke to Mom. Everyone kept looking at me like I was some horrible person. "You asked for me not to be there," I said. Her mouth fell open. "That is so unfair." "Is it untrue?" Brianna looked away. Mom lifted her chin. "No one banned you. We simply thought it would be better if you sat this one out. Because I'm not presentable." Mom's lips tightened. Brianna stepped forward, then eyes flashing. "Evan's family has standards, Nora," she said. "I couldn't have you walking in smelling like primer and talking about leaky toilets. Like that's a personality." The words hit me harder than I wanted them to. Not because they were new, because she finally said them plainly. Dad muttered, "No one is saying your work isn't useful." Brianna nodded quickly. "Exactly. You're useful. Nobody is denying that. But useful isn't the same as presentable." The sidewalk went silent. Even the traffic on the corner seemed to fade. Evan turned his head slowly toward Brianna. She noticed too late. What she snapped defensive before anyone accused her. Evan looked at me again. His eyes narrowed, not with judgment but recognition. "Wait," he said. "Nora Clay." My mother looked annoyed. "Yes, this is Nora." Evan took one step closer. "You're the Nora Clay who restored the Maple Street Community Kitchen." For the first time that morning, nobody had a ready answer. I stared at him. "You know about that?" "Know about it." He gave a short laugh. "My company donated cabinets and paint after the water damage. We got updates. Everyone talked about the woman who basically rebuilt that place with volunteers and teenagers after work hours." Brianna's face changed, just a flicker. "But I saw it." Mom frowned. "It was just a church kitchen." Evan looked at her. "It feeds people twice a week." Dad scoffed. Nora fixes things. That's what she does. No, Evan said quietly. There's a difference between fixing things and building something people depend on. Something inside me tightened. Not pain this time. Recognition. Because a stranger had just described my work with more respect than my family ever had. Brianna recovered fast. She always did. Well, that's lovely, she said, forcing a smile. But this isn't about some kitchen. Of course it wasn't. It was never about what I had built. Only what they wanted next. Dad cleared his throat. Your mother's downstairs bathroom is leaking again. The floor is getting soft. I told her you'd come by today. I looked at him. You told her what? And I need help with the engagement party deposit, Brianna said quickly, like she had been waiting for her cue. The venue wants the second payment by Monday. I'm short because Christmas shopping started early and I already paid the photographer. You want money? I asked. She rolled her eyes. Don't make it sound ugly. You uninvited me from Thanksgiving yesterday, Mom cut in. This is separate. I let the words hang there. Separate. My presence was optional. My labor was required. My dignity was negotiable. My money was family. Evan looked from Brianna to my parents. Are you serious? Brianna turned on him. This is normal. Nora helps with this stuff. That doesn't make it normal. Mom's face hardened. Family helps family. I had heard that sentence my whole life, but only from people standing with open hands. Never from people offering one. I set my coffee down on the workbench behind me. No, I said. Mom blinked. Excuse me? No. I'm not fixing the bathroom. I'm not paying the deposit. I'm not covering bills, repairs parties, late fees, moving costs, or anything else. Dad stared at me like I had spoken another language. Brianna let out a laugh. You're punishing me because Thanksgiving didn't go your way. No, I said. I'm noticing that every family emergency ends with my wallet, my tools, or my time. And somehow, I'm still the embarrassing one. Mom's voice turned cold. After everything we've done for you, I looked at her, really looked at her, at the woman who taught me to be grateful for crumbs and quiet about bruises no one could see. You raised me, I said. That was parenting. Not alone. Dad's face flushed red. Don't talk to your mother like that. I'm talking calmly. You're just not used to me saying no. Brianna's eyes filled with angry tears. You are ruining my engagement. No, I said. You're learning that I'm not a backup plan with a bank account. For a moment, nobody moved. Then Evan said very quietly, she's right. Brianna spun toward him. Are you kidding me? Number, you're taking her side. I'm taking the side of basic decency. That was when the air shifted. Mom's face went pale. Dad's jaw tightened. Brianna looked at Evan like he had betrayed her in a language she didn't speak. Dad pointed at me. You'll regret this, Nora. A year earlier, that sentence would have worked. I would have panicked. I would have apologized. I would have fixed the bathroom, paid the deposit, and somehow thanked them for giving me a chance to be useful again. But that morning, standing in the doorway of the workshop I built with my own tired hands, I felt something new. A boundary. Quiet. Solid. Mine. Leave, I said. Mom flinched. Brianna looked at Evan, waiting for him to move toward her. He didn't. Not right away. He looked at me and said, for what it's worth, that community kitchen mattered. Then he got into Brianna's car. They drove off in 3 different kinds of anger. I stood in the doorway until the street went quiet. Inside, the orange stray cat who lived behind my workshop jumped onto the sanding table and stared at me like he paid rent. Well, I told him Thanksgiving was fun. He blinked once, unimpressed. The weeks after that were quieter than I expected. My mother stopped calling. I think she meant the silence as punishment, but it felt like someone had turned off a machine that had been humming in my skull for 30 years. Dad sent one text. Bathroom got worse. Hope you're proud. I did not answer. Brianna sent several. You made me look selfish. Evan has been weird since that morning. Thanks a lot. You always find a way to make people feel sorry for you. Then at midnight, you've always been jealous of me. I stared at that one for a long time. Jealous. Maybe when I was younger I was. Not of her clothes. Not of her smile. Not of the attention exactly. I was jealous of how easily love seemed to find her. How Mom's face softened when Brianna entered a room. How Dad asked about her day. How people made space for her without needing her to earn it with repairs, payments, favors, and silence. But I wasn't jealous anymore. Jealousy still wants the table. I was finally questioning why I had begged for a chair at all. Work kept me busy through December. People wanted guest rooms painted before relatives arrived. Chairs tightened before Christmas dinner. Shelves installed before gifts piled up. I took the jobs I could turn down, the ones that would break my back, and tried to learn what life felt like when I wasn't on call for people who were ashamed of me. The Maple Street Community Kitchen asked if I could help organize a Christmas Eve dinner for neighbors who didn't have somewhere to go. I said yes immediately. We held it in my workshop because the space was warm and big enough for long tables. Carla brought baked ziti. Mrs. Gomez brought tamales and told me my folding table arrangement had no soul before rearranging the entire room herself. Mr. Larkin from the hardware store donated paper plates, napkins, and 2 cases of soda. A few teenagers from the after-school repair class helped hang string lights across the beams. It wasn't elegant. It wasn't curated. No matching napkins, no white pumpkins, no carefully edited family photo. But it was real, and for the first time in years, I looked forward to a holiday. On Christmas Eve, snow started falling around 4. By 6, my workshop glowed like a lantern on the corner. The front windows fogged at the edges. Kids played cards near the paint shelves. Someone put old Christmas songs on a speaker. The smell of ziti coffee, cinnamon, and sawdust filled the room. Mason Carla's little boy ran up to me with a paper ornament shaped like a crooked star. "I made this for your shop," he said. I took it carefully. "It's perfect." He frowned. "One side is weird." "That's how people know it's handmade." He thought about that seriously, then nodded. I pinned it to the corkboard behind the counter. That was the exact moment the front door slammed open. Cold air rushed in. So did my family. My mother stood in the doorway wearing her church coat and a face full of controlled rage. Dad stood behind her, breathing hard. Brianna stood between them, mascara streaked under both eyes, hair curled but messy now, like she had been running her hands through it all night. The room went quiet. Every conversation stopped. Every head turned. Mom pointed at me. "You," she said. "You have destroyed this family." My stomach dropped, but I kept my voice low. "This isn't the place." "Oh, now you care about place," Mom snapped. "You didn't care when you humiliated us at Thanksgiving? You didn't care when you turned your grandmother against us? You didn't care when you poisoned Evan against your sister?" Brianna made a sound somewhere between a laugh and a sob. "He left," she said. I looked at her. "What?" "He left," she repeated louder. "He said he needed space. He said he didn't know if he wanted to marry into our family." Dad glared at me, satisfied. The old instinct rose up fast. Protect them. Smooth it over. Keep the ugly parts private. Take the blame so everyone can stay comfortable. Then I looked around the room. At Mason holding a cookie he had forgotten to bite. At the teenagers who knew exactly what it felt like to be unwanted. At Carla watching my mother with quiet disbelief. At Mrs. Gomez standing very still beside the food table. And I realized I was not the family shield anymore. "I didn't make Evan leave," I said. Brianna's voice sharpened. "You made him pity you." "No," I said. "You showed him who you were." Mom stepped forward. "Do not speak to your sister like that. You came into my workshop on Christmas Eve to scream at me in front of children." Dad barked. "Because you won't answer your phone like an adult. Adults don't demand free repairs and engagement money from someone they banned from Thanksgiving." A murmur moved through the room. Mom's face flushed. "That is not what happened." A voice came from behind them. "Yes, it is." Evan stood in the doorway, snow dusting his dark coat. Brianna turned so fast she nearly slipped. "Evan." He stepped inside and closed the door behind him. His face looked tired. Not heroic, not dramatic. Just tired in the way people look when they have finally stopped lying to themselves. "I came because Carla told me there was a neighborhood dinner here," he said. "I didn't know you'd be here." Brianna's mouth trembled. "You came here? I wanted to be somewhere that felt honest." The words hit her like a slap. Mom lifted her chin. "This is completely inappropriate." Evan looked at her. "No. What's inappropriate is treating Nora like she's beneath you until something breaks." Dad snapped. "You don't know our family." "I know what I saw." Brianna cried harder. "You saw one bad morning." Evan shook his head. "No. I saw one honest morning. Then I started noticing all the little things I ignored before." His voice lowered. "And I should have noticed sooner. I heard the jokes, the comments, the way you talked about Nora like she was a problem to manage. I laughed it off because I didn't want to make things awkward." He looked at me then. "That was cowardly, I'm sorry." The apology landed differently because it didn't try to rescue me. It simply told the truth. Brianna wiped her face hard. "So now everyone feels sorry for Nora." Perfect. That's what she always wanted. I looked at my sister. For the first time, I did not see the golden child. I saw a woman terrified that if she stopped being admired, there would be nothing underneath. No, I said. What I wanted was to be treated like I belonged. You did belong, Mom said quickly. I laughed once. Where at the table? I was told not to come to. Mom's face tightened. Dad stepped forward. You have always twisted things. Then let's untwist them. I walked behind the counter and pulled out a plain red folder. Not a lawsuit. Not legal papers. Not some dramatic business file. Just receipts. Text messages. Photos. Screenshots. Notes I had written for myself on nights when I was too ashamed to admit how much I had given away. I set it on the counter. Dad scoffed immediately. Unbelievable. You kept score. No, I said. I kept proof for the days you convinced me I was selfish. The room went completely still. I opened the folder. Was I selfish when I paid your electric bill last February? Because Mom said she couldn't sleep from worrying. Mom's eyes widened. Was I selfish when I replaced the bathroom floor the first time? And Dad told Uncle Pete he handled it himself. Dad's face went red. Was I selfish when I spent 2 weekends building Brianna's apartment furniture, and she posted that Dad made her dining table? Brianna's mouth opened. Nothing came out. I lifted one screenshot. The photo was old. Brianna standing beside the reclaimed oak table I had sanded, stained, sealed, and carried up 3 flights of stairs. The caption said, "So lucky to have a dad who can build anything." The room was silent enough to hear the heater click. I looked at my sister. You didn't just take my work, I said. You erased my name from it. Brianna whispered, It was just a caption. No, I said. It was a pattern. Carla stepped closer to the counter, eyes on another screenshot. Wait, she said softly. Is that my kitchen? I looked down. It was the Maple Street community kitchen after the renovation. Brianna had reposted the photo months ago, back when Evan's company donated supplies. The caption read, "So proud that Evan's connections helped bring this beautiful project to life. Community matters." Carla's face hardened. You cropped Nora out, she said. Brianna's eyes flashed. That wasn't the point of the post. That kitchen exists because Nora stayed late for 3 weeks, Carla said. My son ate dinner there when I couldn't afford groceries. The words moved through the room like thunder. Mrs. Gomez stepped forward next, and she fixed the pantry door for free, she said. And the serving counter. And those tables. Mr. Larkin crossed his arms. She bought half the hinges from my store with her own money. Brianna looked around, realizing too late that the room was not filled with strangers. It was filled with people who knew exactly who I was. Mom reached for the folder. Enough. I pulled it back. No. You don't get to edit this version. Dad's voice shook. We raised you. And I loved you for it, I said. But raising me did not give you a lifetime right to use me. Mom's eyes filled with tears. For 1 second, I almost softened. Then she said, After all this, you still want to make us look like monsters. There it was. Not regret. Not apology. Image. Always image. I'm not making you look like anything I said. I'm letting people see what I was taught to hide. Brianna's face twisted. You love this. No, I said. I hate that it took this long. Evan moved slightly, not between us, but close enough that Brianna saw he wasn't coming back to her side. She turned to him, desperate now. Please, this isn't who I am. Evan looked at her with a sadness that felt final. It is who you are when being kind costs you attention. Brianna froze. Mom gasped. How dare you? Evan didn't raise his voice. I can't marry into a family that needs someone to look down on. Brianna's face crumpled. You're choosing her. He shook his head. I'm choosing not to build a life around cruelty dressed up as standards. That sentence broke whatever performance Brianna had left. She turned back to me, crying openly now. You wanted my life because yours is pathetic. A younger version of me would have shattered at that. That version would have believed her. But I looked around at the long tables I built. At the neighbors who stayed. At Mason's crooked star on the corkboard. At the food people brought. At the workshop I paid for with tired hands and lonely nights. My life is not pathetic, I said. It's mine. Dad muttered a curse under his breath. Mr. Larkin stood. He was nearly 70, thin as a broom handle, and had the calm voice of a man who had outlived most nonsense. Ron, he said, there are children here. Dad looked embarrassed for half a second, then angry because he was embarrassed. Mom stared at me like she was waiting for the old Nora to return. The one who apologized. The one who fixed everything. The one who shrank so nobody else had to feel guilty. I did not become her. I walked to the door and opened it. Snow blew across the threshold. Go home, I said. Mom's lips trembled. Don't call us when you need family. I held the door open wider. I won't call people who only answer when I'm useful. That silenced her. Brianna looked at Evan one last time. Please, she whispered. He shook his head. That was all. My parents walked out first. Brianna followed, crying into her sleeve. The three of them crossed the snowy sidewalk and disappeared into the dark, like people leaving a stage after the lights came up too bright. For a moment, nobody spoke. Then Mason whispered, "Are we still eating?" The whole room exhaled. A laugh broke out, small at first, then bigger. Relieved. Human. I wiped my cheek and realized I was crying. Carla hugged me without saying a word. Mrs. Gomez patted my shoulder. "Good," she said. "Now we eat before the ziti gets depressed." I laughed through the tears. Evan stayed near the door, unsure if he belonged. I looked at him. "You can stay if you want." He hesitated. "I don't want to make tonight harder." "You didn't." So he stayed. Not as a hero, not as a love interest, not as the man who saved me, just as someone who finally saw the truth and refused to pretend it was normal. He helped carry drinks. He listened while the teenagers explained the rules to a card game that made no sense. He told Carla her baked ziti was better than anything served at his company holiday party. Later, when the dinner slowed and people packed leftovers, he found me near the corkboard. "You okay?" he asked. I almost lied. Then I shook my head. "Not completely." He nodded. "That makes sense. But I think I will be." He looked at the crooked paper star. "You built something good here." I looked around the room. "No," I said. "We did." Outside, the snow kept falling. Inside, the workshop stayed warm. After everyone left, I sat alone at one of the long tables with a paper plate of cold ziti and a cup of cider. The orange cat jumped into the chair across from me and stared like a judgmental old man. "Well, I told him Merry Christmas." He yawned. I slept on the little couch in my office that night because the roads were bad. For the first time in years, after a family fight, I did not cry myself to sleep. I just slept. Deeply. Like my body finally believed the danger had passed. The silence from my parents lasted through New Year's, then January, then February. Sometimes I missed them so sharply it surprised me. Not the way they treated me. I missed the family I kept hoping they might become. The mother who might call and say I was wrong. The father who might show up with coffee and admit he was proud. The sister who might sit across from me and say I didn't understand what I was doing. But missing a dream is not the same as needing to return to a nightmare. I kept working. I taught Saturday repair classes at the community kitchen. Teenagers who had never held a drill learned how to build shelves. Carla started helping me organize jobs. Mrs. Gomez brought food every week, even when I told her she didn't have to. Mr. Larkin donated old tools and pretended not to tear up when one of the kids fixed a wobbly chair by himself. Spring came, then summer. Blue porch restorations grew slowly, not in a flashy way but in a real one. More neighbors called. More people trusted me with their homes. I hired one of the teenagers, Malik, part-time after school. He was quiet, careful, and better with measurements than he gave himself credit for. One afternoon in July, Grandma Ruth came by the workshop with a peach pie and a look on her face that told me she had been holding back opinions for months. "Your mother says you've become cold," she said. I laughed. "Nice to see you too, Grandma." She waved me off. I told her cold is what happens when people stand outside the door they slammed themselves. I stared at her. Then we both laughed until we cried. Grandma was still my grandmother. That didn't change. Love did not have to be all or nothing. But access to me had changed. That was the part my family couldn't understand. I no longer believed every person who shared my blood had the right to walk into my life with muddy shoes. A year after that Thanksgiving phone call, I hosted another dinner. Not because I wanted revenge. Not because I was trying to prove anything. Because I wanted to. The workshop looked different by then. Fresh paint on the outside. A stronger sign above the door. Better lights inside. Shelves full of labeled tools. Mason's crooked star still hung on the corkboard, faded now but important. On Thanksgiving afternoon, the tables stretched across the room. Carla brought sweet potatoes. Mrs. Gomez made stuffing with chorizo because she said traditional stuffing was too boring to respect. Mr. Larkin carved the turkey with the seriousness of a surgeon. Malik brought his little sister who followed the orange cat around, calling him Sir Pumpkin. Grandma Ruth sat on the head of one table wearing red lipstick and eating pie before dinner because, as she said, I have earned the right to ignore order. Halfway through the meal, my phone buzzed. A notification. Mom had posted a picture. It was an old Thanksgiving photo from years ago. Brianna in the center. Mom smiling beside her. Dad holding the turkey. Me barely visible near the kitchen doorway carrying a stack of plates. The caption said, "Family is everything. Cherish your people while you have them." For a moment, the old ache returned. Then I saw Grandma pick up her phone. 2 minutes later, her comment appeared under Mom's post. "Family is who makes room at the table." Nora did. I stared at the words. Then I set my phone face down and went back to dinner. I didn't need to reply. Grandma had said enough. A week later, Brianna texted me for the first time in months. "My kitchen sink is leaking. Can you come look at it? I know things have been weird, but we're still sisters." I looked at that message for a long time. Not because I didn't know what to say, because I finally did. I typed, "I hope you find someone you respect enough to pay." Then I put the phone away. No speech, no argument, no guilt, just a closed door. That night after everyone left, I stood outside my workshop watching snow fall across the lot. The lights inside glowed warm behind me. The tables were messy. The floors needed sweeping. Someone had left half a pie in the office fridge. My life wasn't perfect, but it was mine. Steady, chosen, earned. For years I thought legacy meant blood. A last name. A house full of old photos. A holiday table where everyone smiled, even when someone was quietly bleeding. Now I know better. Legacy is what remains after you stop begging people to value you and start building something that values others. Respect is not the same as obedience. Love is not the same as usefulness. And family is not a word people get to use only when they want your labor, your money, your silence, or your forgiveness. Sometimes dignity does not arrive like thunder. Sometimes it comes quietly in one simple word. Number. No, I will not fix what you keep breaking. No, I will not pay to be insulted. No, I will not shrink so someone else can look taller. No, I will not chase a chair at a table where my name was erased. I built my own table, and somehow the right people found seats. So if you have ever been the one your family called, only when something broke, if you have ever been left out, talked down to used, erased, or made to feel like your love was valuable, but your presence was not, I hope you hear me clearly. You are not hard to love. You are not selfish for wanting respect. You are not wrong for walking away from people who only call it family when they need something from you. Sometimes leaving the wrong table is not betrayal. Sometimes it is the first honest thing you do for yourself. And sometimes the family that saves you is not the one that shares your last name, but the one that sees you standing in the cold and opens the door. If this story reminded you of someone in your own life, tell me in the comments, when did you finally realize you deserved more than being useful? And don't forget to subscribe for more true-to-life family stories about betrayal, dignity, and finding the courage to choose yourself.